Reddit thread, what is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix that you've ever experienced? By an unknown user. Oh boy, you guys would love where I work. Weird things happen all the time here, but I'll just talk about one of the creepiest moments I've experienced. I worked as a security, nighttime attendant at an apartment building. It's 24 stories, and one of the oldest buildings in the city. One night, I'm sitting here when the phone rings at about 3 a.m. And I answer, "Hello, this is Draven at the front desk. How can I help you?" The voice on the other end sounded female, but it was totally garbled, and the only bit I could make out was 23rd floor. I tried to tell the person I couldn't understand them and asked what apartment they were in. But again, garbled response and 23rd floor. After the third time of trying to understand them and the same response, I said since I couldn't understand them, I'd come up and have them meet me in the hallway. So, I go to the elevators. Both are up on, surprise, the 23rd floor. Luckily, we have an older service elevator, and it's only on the 7th floor, so I call that one down. I get it, and I hit the button for the 23rd floor, but it won't move, and the inner door won't close. So I go to unlock and reset the panel, and boom, we start going up. Door still open. I'm freaking out, and the elevator is shaking because it goes pretty fast, and it's old. As I'm going up, I just stay towards the back, and finally, I reach floor 23. I step out, door closes, just fine, and I look around the hallway. There's nobody around. I walk along slowly, trying to listen for anyone who's awake, who might have called. But there's nothing. So now I head the opposite direction and I go towards where the regular elevators are. And when I get to them, they're just sitting there with their doors open. I was pretty freaked out, but I knew it could just be the elevators on the fritz. So I get in and figure I'll just reset them when I get to the floor at the bottom. That's when I hear the sound of the back stairwell closing. So I quickly get out and go to the stairwell, and lo and behold, no one's there. But the maintenance door to the machine room is ajar, and at that time, I'm the only one in the building with a key. At the top of the building is a large machine room, housing all of the really, really loud machinery that does stuff in the building and allows access to the roof. I don't like going into it because it's creepy as fuck, and no one ever wants to go in there. So, at this point, I'm seriously freaked out. But I muster up some courage and head in. I shout, "Hello?" And there's no response. Lights in this room flicker because they're shitty fluorescent, so I can't see well either. But at the end of the room, I can make out the roof access door. And sure as shit, it's slightly open. So I slowly continue, moving forward, checking the space in between each machine as I walk by. And there's no one there, so I open the roof access door. I can't see anyone ahead of me on the roof, but there is a slight wraparound, and if there was a jumper or something, I needed to be sure, so I stepped out and I leave the door ajar, just like it was. Almost immediately, the door is pulled shut. Now, I might have written it off as wind or something, but this door is hard to shut and hard to open. Like, really hard. I immediately grab the handle, and I yank it open, slam it behind me, and run straight for the maintenance door. It automatically locks when it's closed, so I slam it shut too, and I go back to the 23rd floor hallway. I get in the elevator, it's still open, and I go all the way back down to the first floor. I go back to the main lobby, and as soon as I sit down, the phone rings. I pick it up, don't say a word, and sure as hell, garbled voice again, only audibly saying, 23rd floor. I hung up the phone, turned the ringer off, and spent the rest of the evening just staring at the parking garage security monitor. There's been a bunch of creepy things that happen here at this building. It's basically like the Overlook Hotel at night. I walked past a dark room here on the first floor once and swore I saw myself standing inside it. The next night, as I'm inside said room cleaning, the lights flip off and I turn around and see a quick flash of myself walking past. So, I don't know, there's like a creepy ghost or some shit playing games with me at work, trying to lure me into the roof of the building. Story by A Lot of Italics, found on the subreddit, What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've ever experienced? As I type this, I am already feeling deja vu. I've always wanted to share this part of my life with someone, but I've never been able to. So I'll just tell a bunch of people on the internet. One day, I was walking to work, and all of a sudden, I had this urge to walk a different path than what was my usual. I work downtown in a big city. It was a strange, spur-of-the-moment urge to walk a different way that changed my life forever. I turned into an alley I've never seen before. As I remember it, I made it about 15 feet or so when an actual glitch happened. Everything in my mind scrambled. I felt like I didn't have a body anymore, just that I was a semi-conscious entity floating upward through some weird dimension. All of a sudden, in the array of different colors and shapes, a vision came to me. It was a bunch of strange-looking people that, in my mind, resembled businessmen in suits. They looked startled and panicked that I could see them. One of the people made a quick movement, and everything turned to black. When I regained normality, I was on a completely different street. It was the same street that I always used to walk to work. I felt sick and severely disturbed, and a little depressed. I've never done any hard drugs, never experienced any hallucinations, never had anything like this happen to me. The weird thing is, when the glitch corrected itself, and I could see those people watching me like a caged animal, I had the feeling that I knew I was being controlled. It still bothers me very much to this day. Story by Radis Amicus, found on the subreddit What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've ever experienced? I've posted this before elsewhere, but here it goes. Sorry, this is a long read. I'm from Finland, and that's also where these things I'm about to describe to you happened. This was some years ago, pre-smartphone and GPS era. It was the end of summer, and myself and two friends were going on a camping trip way up in the north, in Lapland. The mosquito season was over, and the weather was cooling down in anticipation of the coming fall. The three of us had packed food and gear for a 10-day trek. The car we had arrived in had been left at the parking lot of a visitor center. This happened within the premises of the Urho Kekkonen National Park, a 985 square mile stretch of wilderness near the Russian border. The terrain there varies greatly, from treeless and semi-mountainous to dense forest of spruce, pine, and dwarf birch. There's a lot of swamps. Seeing reindeer is not uncommon, and some nights you might hear wolves in the distance. You can run into a bear or a wolverine in this place. But of course, normally, they avoid people. We mostly camped in a tent, but some nights we used shelters and simple huts provided for travelers free of charge. The trip had lasted 5 days. We were at the furthest of any kind of civilization we were going to be on that particular outing. Truly, in the middle of nowhere. There really is nothing there. There's no villages, no towns, nothing industrial. The place is a national park, after all. Seeing other hikers happened from time to time. You'd see some people in the distance, maybe. Very rarely would you come face to face with anyone. So, in the middle of our trip, we were camped in a small clearing, woodland extending around us for a considerable distance in all directions. It was already dark. We had eaten our evening meal, and all three of us were jammed in our only tent. It was a bit cramped, but we fit. We took turns carrying it during our hikes. We were just exchanging some jokes and crude humor in the dark, like guys in their 20s do, about to go to sleep in our sleeping bags. When we quieted down, we began to hear it. Talking. And the sound of machinery? Given our location, that was profoundly weird. We camped in a tent because there were no huts nearby. Maybe there was another camp somewhere near us? We couldn't quite make out what was being said, but it was a human voice, no doubt about that. But nothing really could explain the sound of the heavy machinery. It sounded like an excavator or a tank. Something big, powerful, and really not too far away. Combined with the sound of talking, we thought, construction yard? But at that time of night, in an unpopulated, protected nature reserve, we got out of our tent. It was cold and pitch black. The campfire had some coals still glowing. We took out our flashlights. My two buddies have always been a lot braver than me. The sound was clearly coming from the north, maybe half a kilometer away. We thought the construction might be going on behind a small hill some distance off. We couldn't see any lights or anything. We still could not make out what was being said. The speaking-like voice was monotonous, and it was impossible even to say what language was being used. Still sounded a lot like a person speaking, though. You may be aware of that sort of spooky phenomenon of hearing a human voice in static. Maybe you've used a blow dryer and been sure someone is talking. You turn it off, and it was just something in your brain trying to interpret the steady hum. Maybe this was something like that, but it's hard to explain. The machinery-like sound continued, not loud, but you could sort of make out the powerful engine, at times accelerating, adding power, at times idling. My friends resolved to go find out what was going on. We put on our warm clothes, donned our boots, and I sat next to the dying fire, adding some more wood to it. I would stay at camp while my buddies left to check out this mystery, construction yard in the middle of nowhere, Lapland woods nonsense. So, there I sat. The guys took out their maps, took a compass, and left. And I could hear them make their way through the forest. I could see the light from their flashlight. Then, they were gone. The weird sounds continued, unaltered. They were gone 15 minutes, then maybe 30, then the better part of an hour. It was odd, judging by the volume of the sound. They really should have reached it by then, checked it out, and already been back safely. I added more firewood and tried to make out what the person talking was saying, but it was too tinny and obscure. The guys had been away for over 2 hours. I figured they had stayed for coffee with the construction guys or something. Then the sound just stopped. Like just that. It ended all at the same time. The engine sound and the voice both just quit. It was very silent. I waited for another 30 minutes. Very worried now that something had happened, that maybe my friends were lost. Should I go try and find them? I shouted their names several times and built the fire pretty big. I was scared shitless when suddenly I saw flashlights. There were my friends. Apparently, they were returning to me in a hurry. The guys got back to camp out of breath. They told me the following. They'd been following the sound beyond the small ridge in the distance. There was nothing there, and it seemed like they were not getting any closer to the source of the sounds. They'd stop every now and then, be quiet, and listen to it, to be able to walk towards it. They walked, and stopped, and walked, and stopped, like this, for some time. Then, they realized they weren't getting any closer. The sounds did not change in volume, not at all. They decided to just go a bit further several times, when suddenly, the sound just stopped, like someone pressed a button on a recording. They realized they'd been going on for a long time. They were in the middle of a dark woodland area, all alone. They reversed the heading and started back at a brisk pace. Eventually, they saw my big-ass fire from the top of a hill, and they found their way back. The weird thing is, we seemed to think the sound stopped at different times. They had been gone 2.5 hours in total. They said the sound stopped somewhere around an hour and 15-minute mark, right after they left. They then started to head back immediately, return trip lasting a bit longer even though they kept a good pace. They apparently wandered around a bit. For me, the sound stopped at the 2-hour mark, just 30 minutes before they returned. We did not sleep that night. Nothing more happened on the trip. We never found out what the weird construction yard sound was. When we returned to the park's visitor center some 5 days later, we asked around, but no one knew of any ongoing construction taking place in the whole national park area. It's been bugging me ever since. About the place that this happened in, if anyone's interested, there's a link in the comments below.